So, I'm just talking to you. There's no camera. That will be on camera, Max.
Cool.
Alright. So, how are you, Max?
I'm doing well. I'm a little stressed out, but it's good to be on a break for a while.
Okay. You've recently announced the newest installment of Domino Effect 19. Could you just briefly explain to me how we went from a house tournament to 250 people?
Briefly explain, huh?
Yeah.
So, I guess it started out as our friend Brendan's little project. He would want to play Smash with his friends, so he invited us to his house, or his friend's house technically, and we played Melee. There were like 20 people. And we had so much fun that we thought, what if we do this every month? So it became like a monthly among our friend group, and we held it at a different person's house each time. This was back in like 2017, 2018, so we were all in high school, and it kind of stayed the same size. It got smaller as like less people wanted to come back. It was like just the diehards that kept coming back to like prove themselves, to prove that they were better than their friends, you know. And that was like you and me for a lot of it too, in Melee. And then I guess it all changed when our friend Edwin partnered with the Redmond Firehouse Teen Center in senior year of high school, and he opened up Domino Effect to the public. And those tournaments got a lot of people. Like one of them almost broke 100 people, which was huge. It was a big difference between that and our like 15 player house tournaments. But after Edwin left the project, I took it over, and when I came to the University of Washington in 2019, I partnered with the two Smash clubs, the Melee Club and the Ultimate Club, to bring Domino Effect to UW permanently. So no more like find a different venue every month kind of thing. I just want to settle down and put it somewhere. And at this point, it was a pretty established tournament in Seattle. It would get about 100 people, 50 to 100 each time. But then when we brought it to UW, the production value increased, and we put like a big effort into marketing the tournament, and we had a lot of setups between the two Smash clubs. So we were able to pull 150 people for the two that we held at UW before COVID. But over the last year and a half, we kind of had to take a step back and just run some things online, like small stuff to keep people busy, because we couldn't meet up anywhere. And then when school started again, after the pandemic started to quiet down a bit, we moved it back to UW to, that was for Domino Effect 18, which was this past November. And that one got a lot of attention. It got 250 people, which is a record for us personally. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. It seemed like a lot of people had fun, and we were doing it for a good cause too.
Yeah, and kind of speaking of the good cause, it kind of brings me to my next question. Can you respond to this statement? It's a waste of time to be playing video games. We should be doing something better with our time. Could you just tell me what that kind of statement means to you, and how it's impacted Domino Effect, and how you just went from a regular tournament to a charity tournament and a charity drive for climate change?
Right, so I guess the idea that like video games are a waste of time is something I've wrestled with ever since I started in the esports industry. It's like the traditional view of video games is as like a time waster. You're doing nothing productive, but I think that the community aspect makes it one of the most productive things you can do, at least for your own health and your relationships. I think video games are a great way to bond with people, and I've met some of my best friends and my roommates and like even industry professionals by playing games with them and talking about games. So I think this shared love of gaming can bring people together, and Domino Effect is all about giving people the opportunity to play their favorite game. I know for most of the attendees, Smash is really like what they're focusing on. So I think it's it makes a big impact in their social life to be able to come out here and play games with some of the best competition in the Pacific Northwest. And now that it's just to benefit the Coalition for Rainforest Nations, we're also like harnessing this power of love for video games and putting it towards like real action to help solve one of the biggest problems of our generation.
That's climate change?
Yeah, I would say climate change and deforestation.
Perfect. My next question is Domino Effect is a student run and grassroots event where there's a lot of questions of how can we do this or how can we solve this? Could you comment on how you and a lot of the other students you work with answer those kind of questions?
So what kind of questions specifically? Like about the
So,
planning process?
yeah,
Or...
so how do we find a venue? How do we stream the game? How do we get people to come to our tournament? How, things like that.
Yeah, so when every Domino Effect begins the planning process, I make a Google Sheets document called DE Event Operations, and that has a page for like reserving the venue, getting the floor plan all put together, the broadcast, finances, marketing, and any notes throughout the process that I want to keep track of. And that helps our team really get oriented and on the same page. So I guess the first step is to reserve the venue, because without that, you can't really announce the event until you know it can happen. So I'm lucky enough to be working with the Gaming Association at UW and also the two Smash clubs as well. And the reservation process at the university is very easy for clubs. It got a little harder after COVID, but it's still pretty manageable. So we just email the Husky Union building or the hub a couple months in advance and then see if the room is available, and it usually is. So, and we just put in a reservation on the website. And the hard part is like communicating with the building like in the month before the tournament, because they ask a lot of questions about like, okay, what time do you think you'll get out of here? Or how many tables do you need? What's the power situation? What do you need from us to power all these stations? Mm-hmm. So that's when I meet with my team and then develop a floor plan to lay out, okay, this side of the room will be Ultimate, this side Melee, and then we'll put Rivals and BlazBlue somewhere else. And okay, what's the stage gonna look like? The featured players will be here and the commentators over here. And that's like an iterative process where I talk to my broadcast managers and the other staff members to see what the best layout would be. Mm-hmm. So the final product is really just like the final part of a very long process to figure out what works. Mm-hmm. And then I guess the last thing would be marketing. We do have a social media manager on the team, so he promotes us on Twitter, and I do most of the Discord and Facebook posting as well. So it's pretty easy now because everybody knows what Domino Effect is at this point, at least in the Pacific Northwest, because we're kind of the only large tournament series left. So we have a large market share in the PNW, which is very nice. Mm-hmm. So like this past Domino Effect announcement, we got 134 entrants in the first 24 hours. So people definitely keep track of like when this tournament is coming out, and then they try to register as soon as possible to get that early bird discount. And then of course we have people like you, Roland, who do the content side of things, and you design trailers and get footage and then put it all together in a really cohesive and appealing trailer for people to look at. So I think that helps a lot with the marketing side.
Besides me on the team that you mentioned, you've described having a team around you and broadcasting managers. Could you just tell me a little bit about who these people are and how they got to be on your team and how they knew how to run the tournament and things like that?
Yeah, so the first person I want to mention is my friend Ben. His gamer tag is Goose, and he's been with Domino Effect ever since July 2019, where him and I partnered on a couple events over the summer at a concert hall in Ballard, and we're close partners in both of our organizations. I help out with Basement Tier Gaming, he helps out with Domino Effect, and he has a lot of expertise in broadcast. He's been a streamer / content creator for several years, so he's good at running a stream, but even more than that, he's great at negotiating with people and figuring out like the logistical side of things. So he's a great person to have on a team to kind of keep me in check to see what's realistic. Mm-hmm. And then beyond that, there's my good friend Dylan, who he's a student at DigiPen, and he runs the Melee broadcast. He has been since the beginning of 2019 when we were still a house tournament. Mm-hmm. And he does a great job. He runs a stream like no other, and he even developed this like system to input the names of players and what characters they are. So he's really got it down on the melee side. Um, and then beyond that, we have, of course, the volunteers. Like, I know Marcel helped us a lot with the last Domino effect to get the like player information from the stage to the melee stream. So it's a team effort that has a lot of moving parts.
Okay. You and I have talked a lot about the emotional weight of running such events. With the success of DE18, how has that weight affected you going towards 2019?
Yeah, so the framework I prefer for like thinking about this topic is like the hedonic treadmill. So it's the idea where no matter what you accomplish, you'll be like at the same base level of happiness. Like it's hard to find more happiness even if your life improves. So after DE18 was successful, I found that did not translate to increase in happiness necessarily. I just kept thinking like, okay, what did I do wrong? What can I do better? And how can I increase the final donation for the next one? Because $2,000 is great, but I think we have the power to do a lot more. And I feel like I'm running out of time because I'm going to graduate in the not too distant future. So who knows what will happen after that. So I feel really pressured to make the most out of my time.
So you're feeling pressured to make the most out of your time, and you've kind of realized that just because you're successful with it, it's not necessarily making you happy, right?
Yeah. And, we talked about how I had this dream to, like, at DE18, like, to feel really happy that everything was running well. Because at every previous domino effect, there's always been something or a few things that made me really nervous during the event, and that kind of got me off track mentally. But for DE18, I really wanted everything to go perfectly, and it went very well, but there were like a couple things that had me on edge the whole time. So I found that it's like kind of impossible for me to feel relaxed and happy at the event because I have so much responsibilities. But I think afterwards I felt a great sense of satisfaction that I set out to do something and I did what I like tried to accomplish. So that's a really good feeling, and I know my team was also very satisfied as well.
One last kind of question on this topic. You mentioned the after, how you feel after leading up to the tournament, but you talked about the worries of before of things going wrong, and now that you had some things go wrong and DE18 didn't go perfectly, are you still worried about those things going to DE19?
Yeah, so I guess the most concerning thing is the scheduling. The building we use is very strict on their hours and their policies, and due to a miscommunication at the last one, we had a tough situation, but I'm confident in my team's ability to take a hard look at the schedule and see how we can wrap up with plenty of time to spare at this next one. And I'm also in contact with a lot of national TOs about how they do their schedules, so I can get some insight about some best practices for like running multiple events at the same time, and keep making sure all the players are getting to their sets quickly. So I think there is room for improvement, and I am worried, but that's just kind of how I naturally am. But I think logically we will like iron out the kinks and do a great job this time.
So you kind of think that you're worried, but this excitement of knowing that you can do better next time is what's keeping you engaged?
I don't know if it would be excitement, rather like hope. Yeah, I think like if I wasn't hopeful, then I simply wouldn't be running the event, right? So I think we're in a good spot for January, and we have a lot of time to figure it out.
So my next question is, there were reports of a small amount of people at our venue refusing to wear their mask. How do you respond to that? And with the rise of Omicron and the surge of new COVID cases this winter, how are you planning on keeping us safe at D19?
Let me think. So I'm not caught up on Omicron. I haven't really been looking at the news. It stresses me out. But I'm just going to follow the state recommended protocol and what the CDC comes out with. And I have a lot of confidence in our team to execute the COVID prevention policies very efficiently. At DE18, we checked everybody's vaccine cards, and people were good but not perfect about wearing masks inside. I think Western Washington as a whole is a step ahead of the rest of the country in terms of smash events and COVID safety. Like if you look at events in Florida or tri-state, it's a whole different story. I think here I wouldn't say we have nothing to worry about, but it's a lot less dangerous than most other places. And honestly, I think we're going to keep the policies the same for the next one. We'll just make sure to check everybody's vaccine cards. Even if we checked it last time, we have to check again. And as I do check in for other tournaments, I'm noticing people are getting their booster shots. So that will help a lot with the variants and, you know, keeping everybody immune.
My final question is this. So it's this time next year, 2022. It's December. You've had all of the domino effects of that year.
Yeah.
It's winter break. What do you want to say to that Max then?
This is tough because that's going to be like right after the time I apply to grad school. So if that's all I'm thinking about now, like imagine how much of a wreck I'll be then. But ignoring that, I guess I would hope that my future self says like, hey, don't worry about it so much. You're going to do great and you have a lot of good things in your future.
No, what do you want to tell your future self?
What do I want to tell my future self?
Think about all the things you're going to have. Multiple domino effects that year. You're going to go to Genesis. You're going to be applying to grad school. Is there anything you'd like to say to Max? Hope that he did, hope that he didn't do, hope that he remembers?
Yeah, I guess I hope that you learned to strike a balance between school and esports better than I have in the last 2 years. I still have a lot of time in college to figure out how to do both to my best ability, but right now it's kind of a struggle to balance all the work, and I hope in the future I'll continue to pursue both, at least while I'm a student, and, you know, network with professionals and go to awesome events like Genesis, which I'm super excited for. And I just hope that by this time next year, I'll learn how to manage the stress and not put too much expectation on myself and just kind of go with the flow. I think that's the key for success.
Okay, perfect. That's all my questions.
Wonderful, thank you.
Let's fucking go.
Is that it?
Go, yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
How long was that?
That was
Like 15 minutes? 20?